Hello, hello. We are back again for another Wet Ink Wednesday, and this time I've got longtime friend and collaborator Stephen Wu on the call with me, artist and writer. Stephen, say hello.
Hi everyone, how's it going?
A man of few words, as always.
Yeah.
So we were talking before the call, before we started recording about like kind of uh, uh, the World War in a global context. And so I
Mm,
really want to start with talking about like World War One, and I've been focusing a lot on with all the writers in this series about like their sort of what they bring from like being a fan of history to the project. So what do you think you bring, or what do you know you bring to this writing project as a history person, somebody who's got you as a global traveler. I know you travel around the world a lot, different places. So yeah, just talk about kind of background. What's your
sure.
background level of like interest in history?
Yeah, of course. So, you mentioned that I do like to travel a lot, and the thing that I really like to do whenever I travel anywhere is to go to each country's national museum and
Mm,
see the stories they tell about themselves. I feel like nationalism is a relatively new invention in terms of human history, but in the time that it's been around, people have created all sorts of histories and stories about themselves. Um, we're doing this project about World War One, and in many ways, it was one of the first nationalistic wars. We human beings have killed each other for millennia for a variety of reasons, but
sure,
um,
sure.
the idea of nationalism is one that's really interesting to me. And so we were taking a look at Sarajevo and then the sort of Serbian nationalist movement as in real world history as a spark that kind of ignited the war. Obviously, there were so many other dynamics going on, but at least it was a pretext. And in order for something to be a pretext, it had to be plausible enough. It had to be enough grains of truth in it.
Yeah.
So I really wanted, in the context of this adventure, to focus on the Serbian nationalists, and everyone knows, the story of the Archduke Ferdinand getting assassinated. But I kind of wanted to look deeper into, you know, the organizations because it's never just someone decides to kill a monarch, right? There's always all sorts of forces behind them, and I think within the sort of fantastical fictional world that we've created for Never Going Home, there was a lot of space to explore some of those forces.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like the well, first I just want to pick up on like the grain of truth thing that you said. I in doing alternate history, like my kind of like idea about it is that like if you're going to deviate from like the known historical record, you can do any of things, so the answer to the question doesn't really matter because it can
Mm-hmm.
be anything. What
Mm-hmm.
matters is like if you're asking sort of dealing with the big questions of that period, right?
Right.
So we in this project, this dossier, we've put together like an answer of things, but like the questions that I think we're turning on are those nationalist questions, like what, how far is the leadership of the Serbian nationalist movement willing to go, if you involve supernatural powers, how far are they
Mm-hmm.
willing to go to get what they want, and then like you as the players, how far are you willing to go along with that? Those are the
Right.
questions that are kind of and then the answers, like I said, become sort of almost irrelevant, but like as long as you're getting the questions quote unquote right, I think that's how you do alternate history. So, um,
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
to that point, I think, one of the tensions that you just remarked about, that the idea of how far you're willing to go for nationalism. I think in even in the real world, it's always been there's sort of one narrative about humanity is that we're all sort of like one community, and we're all the human race is one.
mhm.
And then the other narrative that always comes in conflict with it is the idea of identity, what separates me, what separates my people from the other people. So I think in the context of the adventure, right, it's human beings, the importance of human beings against this otherworldly power. is that identity more important than the identity as a Serbian, as a proud Serbian, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's really interesting because these questions still exist, and
Oh, of
people are still
course.
struggling with them. But
Yeah.
as you said, we don't have an answer, but we have a answer.
Right. This is right. I think, yeah, I think that's right. It's the again, it's the question that is important for you to wrestle with, I think, or inviting the players to the extent that in a role-playing game of fantasy proportions, there's any
Right.
sort of value to wrestling with things. I mean, it is refined down a little bit from, it's not like it's a challenging essay that is going to win a Nobel laureate. None of us are going to become Nobel laureates out of this. But
Right. Right.
yeah, it's within the sphere of it. So I do want to talk a little bit about some of the rules that you came up with and the
Right.
specifics of the adventure that you wrote. So which almost seems anticlimactic after this first like part of the thing, but like tell us about alarm and what that is and what it's doing in the adventure or
Yeah.
this dossier.
So yeah, I'm one of those weirdos that like stealth missions in video games, and I was trying to implement it in a way that would be fun to the players, but also mechanically, we're within the world of Never Going Home. This is a time before all of these powerful eldritch forces are unleashed on the world. So alarm serves many different purposes. One is to set the tone of the adventure. You're not this like magical soldier fighting in a eldritch wasteland. These are kind of real people with clandestine missions, trying to accomplish their political goals. And at the same time, we want to make sure that the mechanics of Never Going Home are still there, and we want to sort of gesture toward what the world would eventually become. So alarm is a way to both kind of um, dampen supernatural power, and to set the tone and create more of a stakes to your actions. You can't just go around shooting people and using magical powers. You have to think of creative solutions that someone within that historical period would do.
Hmm.
So alarm exists as kind of an upper limit. The more extravagant and attention grabbing your actions, the closer you get to that alarm ceiling. And once you hit that alarm ceiling, the authorities, whoever the authorities might be in that specific scenarios, are aware of you. And whatever actions that you want to take that are outside of the legal, definitions of the time of that society, you can no longer take them. And your mission effectively fails because you have been too extravagant. You are not a superhero wizard ready to take on an entire army. you
Right.
are, you're a scrappy revolutionary who's, trying to get things done with
Right.
minimal firepower.
Right. I'm imagining Doom for whatever reason. I'm imagining Doom guy, with like the big gun running through the bases and blowing up all the demons. Like
Yeah.
that's that's other books in the series, but not
Right.
this one.
Right.
This is more the stealth mission, the hide under the cardboard box while the guy is looking around kind of
Exactly.
mission.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's great. Thanks for you know, I think yeah, I have nothing to add. You said it so well. So are there any particular moments that are in this adventure that you want to highlight? Like, I mean, you've written three of the missions. You kind of designed the whole, like all of our lead writers have done. You designed kind of the whole set of six missions, and then you've written three of them yourself. So are there any like moments that you want to highlight from the three that you actually wrote? Like not necessarily, we're not going full spoilers, so
Yeah.
there'll be something for people to be defined when they get the book in their hands, but like anything you want to, what was the what was anything you want to
Yeah.
share about the.
So, reading through, doing my research of the historical period, I came across this real historical figure, Muhammad Bosic, I think is the Serbian pronunciation of his name. And he is, I mean, his life story kind of is as a novel unto itself. And he's a super fascinating historical character. So I felt like when we have this adventure that's so historically based and that has these constraints on it, you kind of need someone to ground the human story to it so that it's not just, players getting drawn along in great events. They feel like they are committed to this. And it's Serbian nationalism, which is a very specific and niche interest. And it's hard to, for any player to put themselves, it's not necessarily easy, I should say, to put themselves in the shoes of someone who's fighting for this cause. So, I really wanted to anchor the whole series on Mehmet Basic. So I think, some of my favorite moments are the interactions with him, and the sort of transformation or evolution, rather, I should say, of the player's relationship with this real historical character. Um, there, I don't want to reveal anything,
Oh yeah, don't.
but yeah, there are many twists and turns in this story, I should say, that the we all know that World War One does happen, right?
Right.
So, in a sense, there is a little bit of almost suspension of disbelief or suspension of fatalism, I like to say,
Hmm.
because even though you know where the story will end, you don't know the path that it'll take, and my hope is that we've written the twists and turns in there that you'll still get that moment of or oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, even though you know the ultimate conclusion. And there are a couple of moments where that illusion of oh, what should we be doing comes in, and I really like those.
Excellent. You've used the word we a lot, and I really appreciate that. I feel included in the we sometimes, but also you've worked with a bunch of other people, the other three writers that are part of this project, and you guys went off and met on your own. Like I wasn't even involved in these meetings. So like, what was that like to kind of take that I don't know, do you have any leadership, not any leadership advice, but like do you have any like what was that like to like take from like you interacting with me and writing a single adventure to like, hey Stephen, go take it over, and like you guys met together, and I don't even know how extensively you guys planned the other missions, but like I don't have a insight into that. So any do you have
Yeah.
a what
I
can you
mean,
share
so
about
I,
those
I
other
can't take
meetings?
credit for that. The other writers, and especially Doc Wilson, he was very proactive about some of the ideas that he had. And I think, that conversation, the thread that we had, while working on this, we resolved a lot of, just because this is such an interesting period and there's so much interesting um, opportunity to tell cool stories for the players. There was a lot of uh, creative input. It was almost like a fire hose of cool ideas that we had, and I think the main task was to welcome, because there's a lot of good stuff in that fire hose. At the same time, it still needs to be focused,
Yeah.
and it still needs to be internally consistent, and I think the narrative arc and the mood, the tone needs to be consistent. So I think, on the side, a lot of our conversations were about making things consistent. When cool ideas come out of that hose, seizing on it and being like, yes, and we should, maybe work that into this part of the next mission and so on. And yeah, it's I think in a situation like this, it feels a lot like improv, just like playing the game itself. And I think the best attitude is the yes and attitude, right? And figure out how do we get together behind that fire hose to make it do what we want.
Oh yeah, that's great. All right, so you've shared a lot of great information, and I think your perspective is this has been a great conversation so far. But I don't want to end it before we get a chance for you to talk about any of the other many things that you do that you'd like to talk about, because we're here to talk about your writing for this particular adventure, but you've got a lot of things, as I said before. You got a lot of pots on the stove, or a lot of balls juggling, whatever you metaphor you want to use.
I have
Anything
balls
else?
on stoves
Yeah,
and
balls on
juggling pots
stoves,
and hot
right? You pots in
water.
the air, like yeah. Um, exactly. So anything that you would like to shout out before we do like the final, like these are my socials, you can follow me here, but any other projects you want to talk about
Sure.
that you've got on the go?
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple of things. I'm a writer, so I have a novel that we're currently shopping out right now, and I think I've mentioned this in past interviews before. It's kind of like Harry Potter, lawyers sort of story. Um, there's another novel that's going through another round of revisions. My agent and the agency are giving me some editorial feedback about that. And that's about the guy, the sort of like streamer gamer who gets transported into one of his video games. But
All
the
right.
catch is, he thinks that everything is skill, but he only has luck. All of his other stats are garbage, and his luck stat is off the charts. So it's about him trying to navigate that
This is
fantasy world.
I haven't heard this one before. This is a that's a good idea. That's a good starting
Yeah.
point.
The tentative title is dump stat because he gives advice and he's like, yeah, luck is a dump stat. Don't worry about it because who does it, what does it even do? And then when he goes in there, he actually has the stats of an average American teenager. So which is, they're like wizards and barbarians who can chop down trees, and he's sort of just ducking everywhere. But every step along the way, something lucky happens, and
Yeah.
he realizes that his stat is luck, and he keeps on going through this adventure.
All
Um,
right.
and and it's an opportunity to talk about how much luck plays into our society and our world as well.
Sure.
And not to be fatalistic, but also to realize that the board game is not fair where everyone gets placed. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah,
Oh, all right. Well, those both sound great. I can't wait to for them to come out, and I
yeah.
will probably I'm interested in both of those. So
Fingers
yeah.
crossed.
We'll definitely have to update later. Yeah, update it when they're out. We'll share the links and stuff. So
Great.
for now, what is the links that are out? Like where can people find you on the internet as of right now?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Instagram. And I'm at Wortyurt, WURTYURT. I ArtStation I've had a love-hate relationship with ArtStation lately, so I haven't been using it as much, but Instagram is really where I share a lot of my artworks. We recently finished, I guess not so recently, we finished Storm Chasers, which is a YouTube podcast thing, and you can find it on YouTube if you search for Storm Chasers podcast. It's a story about pirates and stuff like that. We'll probably come out with a season two soon, so look for that. But yeah, otherwise Instagram.
All right, excellent, Stephen. Thank you so much for giving me your time today to talk about the Never Going Home, and yeah, we'll have you back on when there's another project to talk about. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's some stuff in the works. There's some stuff in the works. You guys seriously, you stick by the title of the company. So I like it. I like it a lot.
well, yeah, we'll like I said, we'll have you back when there's more to talk about. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great to talk to you, and have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you.